Hello everyone, welcome to City Skylines Springwood City Unmodded Gameplay episode 25. We focused on making our city more touristy in the previous episode, so in this one we are going to focus on how to invite more tourists into the city, which really means that intercity public transport is going to be the main focus of this episode. We are going to look at two main methods. The first one is a train and the second one is an intercity bus line. And along with that, we'll also be reviewing the public transit within the city to make sure that it is the most optimal for getting tourists into different tourist places. Additionally, tour bus would be another thing that we'll be exploring in this episode. So that's the plan for this episode. Now, before we get started, I want to show you one offline change that I've made, which is this interchange, which I have made a little bit more compact. It used to be larger with clover leaves that were quite expensive, but I have made them a little bit more compact, as you can see. The reason being I wanted to clear out some space from these areas to make sure that we can make some additional interesting elements in that area. The downside obviously is this doesn't look that good anymore, and admittedly it wasn't much of an eye candy before, but now it looks worse, so we'll probably need to dedicate one episode especially for improving the aesthetics of this interchange. But that's not the focus of this episode, so let's move on. So as you can see, this is the only place in our city right now where we can access the train line from. So we are obviously going to make use of that. Now we want to figure out where we want to put our first station, and ideally I like to put it somewhere closer to one of the tourist places that we have built. Maybe somewhere over here, but obviously that spot is a little bit too tight with too many things happening and the interchange and things like that, and I want to make sure that that space is a little bit flexible if we want to make any changes in the future. So the next best thing we can do is, regardless of where we put our first train station, we can ensure that that is connected with our existing public transit system really efficiently, which is why I said that we'll be looking at our existing public transit system as well. Now the first thing I'm wondering is where to put our first station. Ideally, I'd have liked to put it somewhere closer to our existing tourist spots, maybe in this area. But that's probably not a good idea because that area has a lot of things going on and there is this interchange here, and I don't think constructing anything that close to that interchange might be a good idea, considering we might need to modify it going forward. I obviously know that we probably don't want to get our station anywhere in the lower part of the city right now, considering how congested that is. So keeping that in mind, I can think of two different options. One is maybe somewhere here, and then they can probably use this highway to get inside the city. Maybe you can modify this road to help them get inside the city quicker. The other option is to put it somewhere over here. That road is connected to several different places. They can take this road to get over here. They can also take this road to get over here and then maybe walk through these areas. We can perhaps make a new medium of public transit on this road so that they can use that to get in this part of the city, and it is also connected to this part of the city, which is really good. Obviously, both of these spots are closer to our train line, so it shouldn't be that hard to bring an extension into either of those. But I'm also thinking about it from a different perspective. We'll be using this train line not just as an access point for passenger trains, but also cargo trains. And since this area is closer to both our industrial districts, we can probably take another extension out of that to get inside this area for cargo trains. So keeping that in mind, maybe this spot is the best for putting our passenger train station right now. And once we have tourists coming into the city using trains, we can evaluate how that is being used and maybe make changes based on that. So that sounds like a good plan to me for the train stations. I am going to clean up this road a little bit alongside this one. And one of the other things I want to change is also this. We don't really need that interchange anymore now that this interchange is used fairly well. So we can comfortably get rid of that and maybe make something else that's more interesting in that area. Also, one of the other things which I noticed that I completely missed in the previous episodes was this interchange, where I have added all connections except for getting people from here to here. If you can see right now, there is just one connection that lets people go from this road to the highway. but there is nothing they can use to get on to this road, which is not the case the other way around. They can easily take this loop to go onto this road and that to get onto the highway. But I completely missed this. It was a stupid mistake, but it's quite funny now that I think about it. So I'm going to fix this right now while we do all of this. With this interchange, I don't want to make anything too complicated, at least for now. This doesn't have too much traffic for the time being. Maybe in the future we'll have more traffic, but right now we are good with this. This road is having these two junctions, but I think that's good for now. We can probably add some stop signs if we think that that's going to be problematic, but I think this is good for now. So let's move on to the train station. Now, ideally, I want a straight road that goes onto this like so. So I'm going to build exactly that. Same thing with this one. We want a really straight road. So that I think looks fairly good. We don't really need a light right now, so a stop sign should be good. And now that this is ready, we can move on to make the train station. So for that, we can either go for a regular train station like this, or we can pick a junction from here to make sure that tourists can get inside the city using a train, and then they can get into a different mode of transit with minimum friction. So let's see what we can do. I'm thinking that we can probably extend our existing monorail that goes from here. Maybe we can branch this off to this road so that it is connected to our train line, and then people can start using that right away to get into our tourist places. Our existing monorail is already fairly well connected to our tourist places, so it should be a good connection. And we can probably also extend this line from here to get onto this road so that that can be also extended all the way over here. So if we want to do that, we can perhaps add a hub that includes both the train as well as the monorail. And as you can see, we have these two. This one is pretty interesting. It has 4 different types of transit in a single hub, but obviously I don't think we need that right now. So we can probably go ahead with this metro monorail train hub and just put it over here if the slope allows that, which it doesn't right now. So we'll need to see what we can do for this. Let's probably use our landscaping tools to make this a little bit easier to build. All right, let's see if this works. It does. Perfect. So we can build this over here like so. We have 2 different train lines, and then we have 2 different monorails. That's really good. We need exactly that for this one. I don't really like how this is going though, but we can once again fix that using our landscaping tools. All right, that looks good. Now, one thing I want to test is if the monorail junction works with this kind of situation because it's too close to the road. And as you can see, maybe this is not the best place to put that. So there is no real solution to this other than moving this a little bit further away. And we'll once again need to fix the slope of this one as well. So let me do that, and let's hope that this works. Okay, so we were able to move it a little bit, but I don't think this is going to make much difference. Let's see. We can make a line like this, but I don't think that's something we want to do. We can probably do something like this if that works. I don't think that is working. All right, this might work. It is still quite steep, but it solves the problem. Yeah, it does. It does solve the problem.
But I still don't like how it looks.
All right, I'm going to leave it at that. Maybe we won't use this road with the monorail line. We can probably use the line outside the road. Maybe we can also push this station a little bit more inside. That's also another option. And I think that might also help us manage the traffic a little bit better in this place. All right, that would work much better. Let's also fix the terrain for this once again. All right, that doesn't look too bad. So now that this is ready, let's build our train line. And for that, we will take this line and extend it all the way here. And I think for this one, I'm going to build an overpass. Something like this would work really well. All right, that's not too bad. And since we already have an overpass, I think we can use the same to build a train interchange over here. So I've created this train line and this interchange for the trains to get from both this direction as well as this one. They can get onto this loop and get in this direction, and they can get onto this one to get in that direction as well. And then we continue that overpass to this all the way onto this hub. I've added services like electricity and plumbing to this, so this is good to go. So now that this is clear, the next step is to connect this with the monorail line and enhance the existing public transit of the city. But that is going to be the third step of this video. Before that, we are going to work on a different different mode of transit, which is, like I mentioned earlier, the intercity bus line. So because of all the problems I mentioned earlier about not putting a train station in the middle of the city, we had to put the train station outside the city, but we don't have that problem with the intercity bus station, which we can easily put maybe somewhere over here. We have a lot of tourist places in this area, so a good spot somewhere around these areas where they have good connectivity to all of this would be ideal for the intercity bus station. And I'm thinking we can probably add one over here. This is really close to this as well as this one. Both of these are good tourist places. This is also closer to our park area over here, and this is really close to our monorail line as well. So I think it has good connections with everything, so we can go ahead and add that right away in this place. So for this, we have two options. We have this intercity bus station that is cheaper, and then we have this intercity bus terminal. For now, I'm going to go ahead with this intercity bus station, and I'm just going to put this over here. The terrain is obviously a problem all the time, so let me just quickly fix that. That should be good enough for now, and I think this is good. So we are just going to wait for this. Obviously this wouldn't have any new lines coming in right now, but we'll wait some time and see how this goes. All right, now that we have this, we are just going to quickly glance over how this is doing. We still don't have any trains coming in yet, but hopefully we will have trains soon. We'll obviously need to resume the game to be able to do that, but we'll come back to this later on as well. So we are going to let this as well as the intercity bus station do their thing. But in the meantime, we are going to do one more thing, which is going to be our tour bus. So along with the public transit options that the tourists will have to get around the city, I think a dedicated tour bus is going to be really good to add the touristy appeal to the city and to also make sure that they get to the different tourist places that we have in the city. For this, we'll need to add this bus depot, which we are going to do right next to our existing bus depot, and we'll obviously start having tour buses from this once we make a line. So we are going to do that right away. We can start by having this train station as the first point, and then Mulberry Park could be another one. The next one could be closer to this area, and we can probably take this maybe inside a little bit like this so that they have access to this park as well. And maybe we'll add a stop over here as well, and then because we don't really have a monorail line yet in this part, we can probably continue in this area. Now, this is another thing we need to figure out. Do we need a line that goes from here to here, or can we continue in this direction? We can probably continue in this direction, maybe add a stop over here and then get them in this area. That could be a good option. We could probably let them get over here, and the next one could be right up in this area. I'm going to put it over here for the time being, and then we can add another one over here. Could add one over here so that they can get to this park if they want to from here. From this, we can probably take them to this area, and then we can take this tour bus all the way back to our station and complete the line. This is probably not the most efficient tour bus, becoming a little bit too long, but we'll see how this goes. We will need to check where people are going, what routes they are taking, but I'm going to leave it at that for now. And at this moment, we probably don't need that many buses in this. We probably just need maybe 4. And then we'll see how this works out. The ticket price right now is $30. We can probably, I don't know if we should reduce that. We could, but we'll see. We'll see how this goes. All right, so now that this is sorted, we have tour buses coming in the city. Let's check how both of these are doing. We have the intercity bus station. I think there is even an intercity bus over here, which is not having any passengers at the moment, but it's service for tourists. We do have a lot of buses coming in, it seems, so that's really nice from both, well, from this direction at the moment, but that's good. That's really good to know. And then let's check how we're doing with the trains. We are having some passengers coming in. That's perfect. Don't really have any trains coming in at the moment, but we do have passengers that were serviced, so that's good. Yeah, there are tourists coming in this area, so that's actually perfect. So this makes it clear that both of these are fairly efficient at bringing in tourists. Now we just need to make sure that our city is well connected and all these transit options are working well for our tourists. So to be able to do that, like I mentioned earlier, we want a monorail connection up to this point as well. So let's review our existing monorail lines right now. So we have our monorail line that loops around in this area and it goes to this and it goes to this. And like I said, we can add a connection over here. Now I'm imagining there are two ways we can do that. One is we can add an extension from here that goes straight up to this area. Maybe we can add a stop in this area as well, so it's easier for the workers that are working in these areas to get to that. And we can also extend that line upwards in this area. The other option is we already have this line going up over here. We can branch this off to connect this area and eventually get to this place. The advantage of this second option is obviously there will be a connection for these new neighborhoods as well. They're obviously not that well connected with our transit system right now, so it will be good for our residents for sure. We could potentially also make a hybrid of both of these where we add a branch over here and we also add this connection so that this becomes more like a terminal station. The advantage of having this connection is that people can come into this really quickly and get into our tourist places fairly quickly. They don't really have to loop around through this as much in comparison. But again, it's a monorail, it's fairly fast, so it shouldn't be that much of a problem. But I'm going to still make sure that it is as efficient as possible. So let's make a hybrid of both of these and let's start by branching this monorail line from here. Alright, so we have laid out the new monorail tracks from the new train station in these new areas like I mentioned. I've added 2 more monorail stations over here to connect both of these neighborhoods. And as I was saying earlier, maybe we could have added one station in the Amity service area, but I don't think there is enough value in that because that area doesn't have that much ridership yet. We can perhaps add one in the future if we really need to, but for now, I think this is good. Now, the next step is to add a monorail line on these newly laid out tracks. And we already have two of these lines, and I'm thinking I don't want to touch these lines for the time being. And instead, I want to add a completely new line altogether in this area. So I'm going to do that right now. I will start from my station over here. I will go to my next stop over here and then over here. And this will extensively overlap our existing line, but that's all right. I'm not going to take this line through our industrial areas as well as our university stop, but instead I'm going to take this line to this stop and then this one and then take it back to the station like that. Although that's not something I want to do. That's not really happening the way I want it to, but we'll revisit this in some time. So right now it's getting out of the train station. It's going to these two newly created stations and then it is going down into Foggy Heights. There are some tourist places in this one. Maybe we can have a better connection with this area as well. I don't want to split that to a new stop over here, but perhaps we could if we really need to. And then it goes to this stop over here and then this one, and it then returns back on the same route over here. So I'm just going to roll with this for now. I'll see how efficient this is and how much ridership we get, especially from tourists, and we'll go from there. So let's resume this and let's see how this is going. And while we have this monorail thing going on, we can check how our train station is doing. So we have public transport coming in and we have this thing going out as well, although we don't really have that many passengers that were serviced last week. So that's not that good. We do have this train and there are some passengers that are going out of the city. It's not that efficient right now, but I do see these cars coming out of the station and I see that a lot of these are tourists. So I think this station is able to fulfill the intention that we started out building it with. Let's check our intercity bus station. This one serviced 400 passengers last week, which is really good. So this one is a success in that regard. Let's also check our tourist bus and see how efficient that is. We have this one line. We have 13 passengers, which is probably not that efficient. Yeah, it's not that efficient yet. This, I'm assuming right now, is too long for all our tourists. So one thing we can do is maybe reduce the ticket price. Maybe it will make it more appealing for the tourists. The other thing we can do is probably shorten that line and maybe add multiple lines so it's not that long. And obviously now that we have the monorail, we probably don't need that tour line to be that long because long distance travel can happen using the monorail. So that's actually an easy problem to fix. So we have this monorail and this one has service to tourists right now. I think we can probably reduce the number of cars at the moment. We can probably just have 4 and see how that goes. And overall, this I think should be a success. We'll come back to this. We'll need to redesign all our lines to make them more efficient. But for now, I think this is pretty good. This also opens up the gate for us to add cargo trains, which might be one of the things we can explore going forward. We obviously have some demand issue that's happening in our industry. This one doesn't have that many issues yet except for garbage. I have also cleaned up this interchange, so now we have this really straightforward road that is taking people on and off this area. Overall, we have some situations like one of the things I was thinking was maybe we don't even need this extension that's going all the way over here. We can instead have a connection that goes and connects to this station right away. We don't really need that split in that regard, but we'll review all of that later on. Now, since we have done all of this, let's go back to our tourist panel. First of all, let's see the budget and let's see how much we are making from tourism. So this has increased quite significantly. And as you can see, much of that is actually coming from public transportation, which is perfect. That's exactly what should happen considering we focus primarily on the public transportation aspect in this video. This used to be like 0.5, which was too less, but now it is obviously more efficient. And let's see if this helped make our city any more attractive. It is still at 30%, which is not that much, but we have a good amount of increase in the number of tourist visits in our city, which is actually really good. So if we can keep up this pace and make our city more efficient in getting tourists around, then I think we can give our city a good boost in tourism and we can increase the amount of income we get from tourism quite significantly. Same thing with attractiveness. We have the same locations, really, there is not much difference here, but it's all going really well overall. So I think looking at the numbers, it definitely seems like this episode was a success. We wanted to get more tourists into the city, and we are getting them, and we are getting a good amount of money from them as well. As the next step, we have few different directions like I just talked about. One is obviously making our public transit a little bit more efficient, revisiting our existing lines and things like that. The other direction is cargo trains. Like I mentioned, we can make use of that train access we have now. And we might have a few other directions which I don't even know about. So if you have anything interesting that you want to see, if you want me to explore something new, please let me know in the comments. And I'll end this episode over here. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and follow our Instagram channel. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.